Thank you for listening to this episode, and follow the podcast on social media by finding @prestigiouspod. And if you'd like to be coached on how to live a more prestigious life, you can reach out to me, Chris Beane, at Chris Beane Official, or by emailing the podcast directly at prestigiousinitiative@gmail.com. Lastly, sign up for our newsletter either through social media or on our website. This is the Prestigious Initiative. Welcome. I'm Chris Beane. Today we're going to be diving into a topic that every entrepreneur needs to hear: achieving time and financial freedom. I'm excited to have Ken Mack with us, a seasoned entrepreneur, business strategist who's dedicated to helping business owners break free from the daily grind. Ken's expertise shows us how to shift from working in our business to working on our business, unlocking more income, more importantly, unlocking more time to focus on lifestyle, health, wealth, and fitness. Let's dive in. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hi, it's good to be here. Thanks for having me.
So, Ken, why would somebody want to listen to our conversation here today?
So, my background comes from a very working class family, in and out of very basic jobs, gone to college, didn't do very well there, quickly understood that the most important thing is time. And when you go to college and university, you're going to spend a lot of time learning with no guaranteed outcome. So you can spend 6 years studying something that you're going to be in a lot of debt. You're going to lose a lot of time, and there's no guaranteed outcome. And if you don't focus and do the things that you're supposed to do, then the outcome is not going to be very good for you. You're going to fail the program that you attend. So through my life, going in and out of many different basic jobs and understanding all of the different mechanisms that go into the thing that we call the system. You know, I know in the some of the younger generation call it the matrix, but whatever you want to call it, I spent a lot of time understanding why and questioning everything, and I eventually found a way that allowed me to live a life with freedom. And the only way to do that was to get into business, and I do it in a very specific and interesting way that anybody, I guess, can do, because I come from no background of specific education. I'm just a normal, everyday guy, but I managed to achieve a reasonable level of success, which gives me the ability to focus on myself, my family, and also, longevity, because, now that I've achieved something, I'd like to be able to live as long as I can to enjoy that. So I would like to share that message with our listeners so that they can understand and understand that this is absolutely possible and achievable for the normal everyday guy or girl. So that would be my my summary of what I will be sharing with everybody today.
Wonderful. So, Ken, how did you stumble on or discover the need for optimizing business systems in order to achieve that financial and personal freedom?
I guess it goes back to, before I was 21, I was starting small businesses. When you start a small business, any entrepreneur or business owner can resonate with this, that it can take you a long time before you make any money. And to get to the stage where you can actually take a wage or a salary, whatever you want to call it, from the business, you've got to wear many hats in that business, which involves dealing with clients, marketing. So you need to be the marketer. I guess you need to be the accountant, and you need to serve all of these different functions in the business. And whilst you're serving all of these functions inside the business, you're missing one very important thing, and that's time. And that's time to live, to enjoy the fruits of what you're building. And a lot of people go into business forgetting that the main reason of going into business is to become free. And a lot of entrepreneurs, they lose that freedom when they start a business. And that's where I had the eureka moment, where I thought, well, maybe if 9 out of 10 businesses are failing in the first 10 years, would it not make sense to buy a business from a seasoned entrepreneur, somebody who's gone through all of these hoops and hurdles, and has a business to sell that's proven the test of time? So at 21, I started buying businesses, and that completely changed everything for me, which gave me The number one thing was time freedom, where I didn't need to serve an internal role within the business that I had acquired, where I could go to the gym and I could focus on wellness, health, longevity, and then just maintaining that business at a top tier level.
And okay, so you talked about buying businesses, and I know that you have talked about buying businesses with no income from yourself, like you're buying it with for $0. How tell me how does something like that work?
We call it an LBO, which stands for leveraged buyout. So if we think about the term OPM, so other people's money, imagine you're going to go and buy an apartment and you're going to go to the bank and you're going to ask them to lend you money to buy the apartment. The bank is going to say, okay, so we can give you 90% of the capital required to buy this apartment, and you put 10% down. That, in effect, is a leveraged buyout. So we do it in a very similar way when we're buying a company. So we're using other people's money to buy the business. In the USA, most of you guys, I guess, are going to be listening in from the USA. You've got access to a very exciting and specific loan from the government-backed loan called the SBA 7A. So effectively, you can go right in there. You can buy a business up to the value of 5 million US dollars with a very, very small deposit, which is phenomenal. Because in the UK, where I am based, we need to do things slightly differently. Yep, you mentioned the whole no money down thing. There are ways where you can buy businesses without risking any of your own capital. And that's what I've been doing since the age of 21. I learned how to buy businesses without using any of my own capital. But of course, when you take a business and you squeeze as much debt as you can from the business becomes the liquidity. The more that you leverage against the business, the less profitability and liquidity that the company has. So if you want to do 100% buyout without putting any money down, then you would naturally expect that the business is not going to have a huge amount of money to pay you from day one. But over the course of 3 to 5 years, you're going to be paying off all of the debt that the business has acquired, providing that you buy right, you buy the right company or business, and you can make an exit from that business. Let's say you buy it on a one times multiple of the annual profitability, you can sell it for a 3x or a 4x multiple after 3 to 5 years once you've paid off all that debt. So I've been refining these systems over the last 15 to 20 years. Buying a business with no money down. The last deal that we did was about 1 month ago. It was a print manufacturing company in the UK. But the beautiful thing about the USA is that the mentality is much different over there than it is to the UK. You can buy a company with up to 100% seller finance because it's kind of a natural, I guess, instinct, if you want to call it that, in the USA, where people just automatically assume that a deal is going to have a percentage of seller finance. So in the USA, it wouldn't be uncommon. I've literally just been working on two deals now. One of them is 80% seller finance, and the other one is 70% seller finance. So that means without even going to the bank and asking them to give us an SBA loan or using the company's assets to buy it out, so we would raise loans against the assets. That means we only need to find 20% of a deposit, and then the seller is effectively going to become the bank and allow you to pay the business. The profit that the business makes is going to repay the loan that the seller has provided to buy that business. So like it's just the ultimate life hack. The very first thing that I noticed through buying a business at 21 was the time. That was something that it wasn't normal for me because I was in the mindset of working in the business, on the business, not above the business. And it just felt strange coming into a business that I didn't need to spend any time working or doing a job. Because coming from a working class background myself, like I had it kind of coded into my brain that I had to do something. So it felt very strange to not have to do something in a business that was making money from day one. So it really is the ultimate life hack.
Now, when you're looking for the businesses to buy in that type of way, are there specific business models that work best over others, or does pretty well any business kind of up for grabs?
It really depends what you're looking for. Um, Most businesses operate within the same principles. It's, you're either selling a product or a service, but I guess it's down to the risk that you're willing to take, and the risk goes into what type of industry that you're looking at buying into. If you were going to say, Ken, I've got a pizza shop in New York that I'm looking at, the seller is willing to take 80% seller finance, I would say probably stay away from it unless you want to buy yourself a job. I call it the revolving door to hell, where you've got people coming in and out, recruitment. So you've got people come in, work for 3 weeks or 3 months, and then you need to find somebody else. So like there are various different industries that we would just completely stay away from. Um, but usually we look for something that has stood the test of time, that's gone through multiple financial crisis situations, that is a product or service that's niche, that's not in high competition, that you could say is essential. So essential infrastructure or an essential goods or services is typically what we tend to gravitate towards. We acquired some interesting companies over the last 24 months, and these are things that even over the last year that you would never even think of. I'll give you two examples. One of the companies that we just acquired was they make a specific component that goes inside the machinery which heat seals the bottom of toothpaste tubes. So have you ever noticed the bottom of the toothpaste, how it's got a specific seal? So we make a very specific component that goes into the machine of like the Colgate use, so they buy from us, and then they seal the bottom using our product, which is a metal rod that we make. That's got a lifespan. So our factory is responsible for 60% of the entire global supply of toothpaste tubes, which is a crazy stat. Yes, like mind blowing.
Yeah.
But this is what I mean by niche. Buying a niche business that you wouldn't think, let's go and create this metal rod, which is going to go inside the packaging machines that Colgate are going to use to close the bottom of a toothpaste tube. Another interesting company that we just acquired as well was what we call PTFE, polytetrafluoroethylene, I think is the chemical name, but it's a Teflon is the brand name for it. So the non-stick chemical that they put on the pans that go into your kitchen. So that gets used in like Formula One use it. They use it on space satellites. We're actually spraying a space satellite just now for a specific client in the UK that's sending the product that we're spraying up into space. But again, who would think of buying a PTFE manufacturing company? So the more niche the business, the more essential the product, the longer the business has been established. These are some of the variables that we'd be looking at. A business that your friend down the street is not going to think, let's start a PTFE company or a packaging company. You want something that's not so orthodox, that's it's difficult to explain to people.
Sure.
Because even still to this day, like I find it difficult to explain. So what is it that you do, Ken, in these factories? Well, we make PTFE. So what's that? Well, I don't really know myself what it is. I've only been there twice in the last year. But there's so many interesting opportunities in the USA, especially. You've got like 2 million plus businesses on bizbuysell.com for sale. In the UK, 300,000. So many fun opportunities, and life is very short. And that's the number one thing that we need to remember. Life is way too short to take the gamble and the risk to start a company that's got a 9 out of 10 chance of failing in the first 10 years. And imagine the blood, sweat, tears, the stress, not being able to pay yourself that's going to go into something as high risk as starting a business. Why would you do that if you can go and buy a business that's going to take you 30 to 90 days, where the bank is going to give you 90% of the capital, at least in the USA, that's been there for 30, 50, 100 years? So it's like, this is a no-brainer.
Okay, so we talked about time, and time is such a valuable commodity that we have. How at this point you are the owner of several businesses, I'm assuming. How Okay, so you own several businesses, but time is a valuable thing that you are prioritizing. How do those things mesh together? How much time, let's say on a given week, are you devoting to these companies?
So at the moment, I would say the businesses that we've just acquired in the last 6 months, I'm spending maybe 1 hour per week in a meeting. These companies have their own systems, their own structures. They've got people inside them that have been in there for 6, 15, 25 years. They've got a manager or a director. So the company's already operational. So sometimes I'm going to log into the accountancy software, take a look at what's in the bank account. But that's the beautiful thing about buying a business, right? You're not buying yourself a job, and there is a misconception and a misunderstanding amongst normal people like us where we think, let's buy a business, and eh, if you don't have the knowledge of how that business operates, you would automatically think, you need to work in the business, you need to understand all of the systems, the operations, and serve a role in that company. So you've got to change the way that you think and think of it this way. You're buying a company that's got systems in place, it's got structure, it's got a management team, and it's operating without you spending time in it or on it. You want to be spending time above the business. So when you buy the business right, there is no requirement of you to be spending time day to day because there are people in that company that can make decisions for you on behalf of the company, and that company should operate without you spending time every day. But there are sellers out there that will insist, owner operator companies that will insist that you have experience in the industry and they will expect you to be there day to day, managing it and operating. And that's the baby boomers. There is the baby boomer mentality still out there that's that they think you should be working every day, and because they have in that business. But when you approach the seller and you paint the picture in a specific way, then you can take over that, even still take over that business with a small team, and explain to them that one of the team, you're going to be putting them in there day to day, and you'll be there overseeing the operation so you can grow the business. So it all depends on the picture that you paint when buying that business and who you're buying it from as well. But just now, I'm speaking about mom and pop kind of main street businesses up to the value of 2, 3 million USDs. Of course, you can get out there and you can buy bigger companies, 5, 10 million, $100 million companies. But just now I'm kind of referring to the main street businesses.
So this is sort of along the lines of what like Elon Musk is doing, where he's going through and buying all these companies. He's not there the day to day. He's not actually, I mean, he's maybe the head of the company, but he's not necessarily running the management team and telling them how to do and what to do. He might show up once a week or so to be in a meeting, but then he's flying off to be in the other meetings of the other companies he's in. So this is sort of along the lines of that, right?
Well, exactly that. And if you look at Richard Branson, living in
Hmm.
Necker Island, this guy's like 500 companies. And it would be impossible even for him to spend, 1 hour a week on 500 companies. It's just about buying the company right, making sure that the company um, is operating without you being part of the daily operations. But it might be that you want to be part of the daily operations, and there is nothing wrong with that whatsoever. But my portfolio isn't 500 companies, so I do have time to spend, and I want to be part of, learning about what the staff are doing. But I'm not there telling them what to do. They don't, there are people that work in these companies that have no idea who I am. I'm there behind the scenes. Sometimes I go into the factories, I'll take a walk about, just speak to some of the staff. What are you doing? Can you explain this process to me? I have no idea what most of them are doing in these companies because I don't need to understand. It's their area of expertise. There is a manager in place, usually that oversees and understands all of the processes. So when you buy the company with the proper structure, then this is not something that you need to worry about. But of course, you could stress about that and think, what if these people leave? And should I know how to do this or know how to do that? No, it's not necessary. You just need to remember you're not buying a business, you're buying the people, and then the people build the business. If you buy a company that has got good culture, the staff are all getting on together, that's been looked after as well by the team, then there is nothing to worry about. But what's the point in life without risk, right? We're all going to die soon. Life is so short, and I remind myself that every single day. We're going to die soon. Time is running, and as we get older, time seems to be going faster and faster and faster. So in order to enjoy life, chase what you're passionate about, then this is the only answer, And speaking of passion, I think one of the biggest scams that we were ever sold is, following your passion. There is no way that I'm passionate about Teflon or packaging components. I'm passionate about business. I love business, but in order to chase the passion, then I need to have money to chase a passion and time freedom. If I was chasing my passion, then I'd be trying to compete for a place with Lewis Hamilton in Formula One, which is probably never going to happen. So like this is the answer.
Well, and the other tough part about chasing your passion is a lot of times when you are going after your passion, you are leaving money on the table for jobs and other things that you can and maybe are better at or better suited at. Just because you like doing that thing doesn't mean you're going to find somebody that's going to pay you what you deserve or what you think you deserve for doing that job.
Definitely, definitely. You hear a lot of bad advice out there, and I've heard it constantly over the last 20 years. This terminology get thrown about social media. You need to find your passion, what you're passionate about, and then follow your passion. This is not the case in any way, shape, or form. Again, if I was going to follow my passion, I'd be trying to become Tiesto, be a DJ. So I wanted to be a DJ when I was younger. But again, this is a difficult task. Why would you want to put yourself through these struggles if you can get the end goal quicker, which is money, which is a tool to give you freedom, right? Now you've got the time. Now you can market yourself as a DJ. If you want to become a DJ, market yourself, use the money that you've just made, build a brand, build a personal brand, build a team around you, get some professional mentorship, get yourself in the magazines, build some authority, get yourself some gigs. No problem. You're not going to make the money that you're making now, but now you're a DJ. You get to follow the passion. That's what one of the things I learned as well is that when emotions are high, right, the intelligence is low. So obviously with with music, I am passionate about music, but if you're thinking in the lines of when emotions are high, being a DJ is a very emotional decision, then intelligence is low because you ain't going to become Tiesto or one of these big artists with a high probability. The probability is low. So you've got to. It's all about logical thinking and doing things in a very specific way. And I read a book called "The Science of Getting Rich" by Wallace D. Wattles, and he I've got no idea who this author is, but he said that the rich get rich because they do things in a certain way, and it always stuck by. It was like a 200-page book, very good book, and I always followed the principles that Wallace D. Wattles was speaking in this book called "The Science of Getting Rich." It's a very good book.
Well, okay, so that's really interesting too, doing things in a certain way. And oftentimes these people that are the founders of the business, you talked about like there's somewhat of a struggle sometimes where they expect you to be at the business and you're going to be there every day because that's what they did. When these people are the founding person, like they started this business, they put their blood, sweat, and tears in this. And so for you to come in and say, yeah, hey, I'm going to buy this and here's the stuff. And I can imagine the pushback there because they did things a certain way, but that's because that's what their generation, that's what their culture was at that time. But the culture now that we're in is not that way. The owner of the business doesn't necessarily have to be there every day. The owner of the business doesn't necessarily have to do each and every job or even know how to do each and every job. They just need to know how to assemble the team so they can do the jobs or how to move into a business that's there that already has the team members in place and then get them to continue doing the jobs that they're already doing.
Well, that's it. You've mentioned the blood, the sweat, the tears, and it is a very emotional decision for the seller to walk away from a company that's taken them 30, 40 years to get to what it is today. Like, I was sitting in a meeting with a seller of another manufacturing company. They make gas struts. So imagine you're going to open the boot of your car or the trunk, and you've got these struts at the side that open up. Yep. So he makes these gas struts inside his factory. Summarizing numbers, it makes it's in pounds, so it's £2 million a year turnover. So that's the revenue, and then the profit is £500,000. So yeah, profitable business. It's got a staff of maybe 10 or 15. It's a nice business. So he I sat in front of, took him for lunch, and I sat in front of him and explained to him how we were going to buy his business. And he had the look of shock in his face. He said, I, I can't believe that you can buy my business this way. He said, how's that possible? I said, well, the whether we bring, 2.5 million pounds to buy your business in cash, or we raise the capital through the banks, you still get the same outcome. And he looked upset. Like he genuinely looked upset because he was almost angry at the fact that somebody could come along. He said, I had no idea that somebody can just come along and do this. He says, this is crazy. I said, well, not a lot of people know that you can do it this way, but this is just how we buy the companies. I said, I own another manufacturing company half an hour this way. So, like, if you want to come and you want to see a beautiful operation, we bought it in exactly the same way that we're proposing to you now. Um, and, like you said, I need to go away, speak to my accountant and think about it. But, basically inside his head is saying, it's taken me since 1980 to get the company to what it is now. And these guys can come along, raise capital without putting their hand into their own pocket, buy my company with no money down. Half of it was going to be seller finance, which he agreed to. And he almost wasn't happy about that. He almost wasn't happy about it. So, like, it's very difficult. It can be very difficult for some sellers that are emotionally attached. But this is what I mean by when emotions are high, there is no logic. Intelligence is low because at the end of the day, the guy's 65, 70. It's time to retire. You can't die with your company. You need to walk away at some point. So the logical decision would be it doesn't really matter how the money is raised. I'm looking to make an exit. The company is going to be in good hands. It's an emotional block inside the heads that some sellers need to understand and get their heads around, that companies do get bought and they have been bought since a very long time through LBO, leveraged buyout.
Mhm. Okay, so can you talk about the ultimate life and wealth hack? Can you break this concept down for us and tell me how does it change the way that entrepreneurs approach their work life and their personal life?
Yes, so the ultimate life and wealth hack is to find a way to make money with the minimal amount of effort. Starting a business is maximum effort in maximum time. So there's no logic in that. Buying a business is what I refer to as the ultimate life hack. Because if you buy the business right, that's going to give you enough profitability to now live a life whilst you've got a fully functional, profitable, and established company running on the side, you can now focus on you. There's a because most people in today's society are spending so much time on their business or their job, they have little time to educate themselves on health and spend time in the gym, spend time getting fit, spend time, looking after, as a man. One of the things I believe a man should do is learn how to fight. So what I do is I'll go. I've got a martial arts trainer, world champion, a MMA champion from Cage Warriors. He takes me 3 times a week. So if I was working in my business, there's no way. Like this is 3 to 5 hours out of my week, Monday to Friday. So I'll go learn how to fight, learn how to train, and I'll spend 1 hour in the gym as well, lifting weights and do some cardio 5 times a week. So like I'm able to do these things because I learned how to hack the system. And to hack the system, you need to buy a business. You need to learn how to buy the business in the smartest possible way. And that's with little to none of your own money down. And then you need to multiply that by the next business. This gives you the freedom. Like if you told me 1 week ago or two weeks ago, Ken, you were going to be in Africa, up the Atlas Mountains, meeting the Berber people, having tea with these indigenous people up the mountains, and looking at beautiful waterfalls with your wife, I would have said you're crazy. But I've got the time where I can plan these things at short notice because I've got the time. I'm not working in these businesses, so we booked a last minute trip. We went to Africa. We're in the Sahara Desert. We're scaling the Atlas Mountains and drinking tea with the Berber people, the indigenous people. Just 2 days ago. So if you're working, like I was saying to my friend the other day, like the in the UK and Europe, you're lucky if you have 30 days allocation of holiday. So I can't get my head around having to ask somebody permission to go on holiday. This is crazy. Imagine having to ask somebody, sir, can I please go on holiday or put a request in to have 7 days holiday? Imagine having to do that. When you work in your business, then you have a little bit more freedom. But when you have a company that you've acquired, which has a set of systems in place where you don't need to ask somebody permission, where you've separated yourself from that company so that the staff don't even expect that you should come in and cover for somebody. Like, I never once had any member of staff call me and expect I should come in and do a job just because somebody else is off. So you need to be very careful how you craft your relationship with the company, with the team, because I want to be able to make the decision if I want to go tomorrow to scale the Atlas Mountains in Northern Africa, or drive my car, or buy a camper van in Scotland and drive it to Senegal or Ghana in Africa, which I spoke to my wife about yesterday, that I want to do that. I want to be able to work from the laptop without, in travel, without having to get the permission from somebody. So this really is like the ultimate life hack. Property, full of red tape. I've been investing in property for a very long time, 20 years, and it's boring. It doesn't make a lot of money. Buying businesses is literally the ultimate life hack when you do it right. I've bought many businesses that have been bad deals, but I've had lots of businesses that are great deals. And just always remembering and going back to the main point where life is very, very short and we're 100% going to die soon, and life is going quicker and quicker and quicker. We need to be able to enjoy our life. We need to remember that we're human beings, not human doings. We're not here to work in a cubicle. We live in this box, we call it a house. We go into the car, which is a box, to then travel to a box, and then sit in a box, work in a box, and we do that for 8 hours a day, every day. This is not what life is about. Life is about enjoying time with the family, is about being fulfilled, and about enjoying this experience that we have whilst we've got our health, because we never know when we're going to become unwell. Cancer is rife and all of these horrible diseases. We want to die with just knowing that we don't have any regrets, that we've lived our best life possible.
Okay, so all right, Ken. So I got a couple different areas I want to go for that. Your concept of keeping, understanding that life is short, understanding that we're going to die soon. It reminds me of memento mori. In fact, my ring that I'm wearing here says memento mori. So I have a ring that reminds me, which is the Stoic philosophy that it means remember
Wow.
death. And so I see that all the time. I wear that. I read Marcus Aurelius' Meditations. Great Stoic, the Stoic philosopher king. Anyways, wonderful. One of the things that he said was to remember that we're going to die soon. And so what that means is that's like live each day like your last. Like, know what you're doing. Go out and do it. Don't put it off for tomorrow. Don't say, oh, you know what I'm going to do. No, do it now. And so being consistently reminded of that, keeping that on present focus is so important, because that changes how you live your day and the things that you prioritize through your day. So keeping that at the top is really important. And I also, you talked about training with a martial artist. I think I absolutely agree. One of the things that a man should do is learn how to defend themselves. Myself, my job, my day job, sort of, I work in the evening time, so I guess it's an evening job. But anyways, is a professional martial arts instructor. I started training martial arts when I was 11 years old, and I got a work permit from school so I could start to help to teach classes. Now I run the entire school. So understanding that a man should know how to defend themselves is near and dear to me, and the martial arts is right there, right alongside, because that's what I do. That was my first job, and really the only job that I've really ever had is training martial arts. And so that also is really intriguing that you capitalize on that.
Wow. My
question,
son, I tell him that this is the Number one skill.
Mm-hmm.
He trains as well twice a week. I said, forget everything else. The martial arts for you is number one. I said,
Mm-hmm.
there's so many reasons for that, for the mindset, for yourself, your confidence, not just about fighting back, but it's like so. I wish I started a long time ago with the martial arts, but like I tell my son, this is number one.
Yes. Well, and if it's done correctly, so martial arts by default has all these wonderful benefits, discipline and focus and being able to be humbled and to crush the ego, because those are all wildly important things for outside society that you're not really taught any other way. And if the training is done in a correct way, in the right way, I think that those things are found in the martial arts not by accident, but on purpose. So with strategy and purpose delivered those information, that the focus, the coordination, the opportunity to be humble, to crush the ego, those things are so important. And again, martial arts has that by default, but if it's done correctly, those things are in there by purpose and by design, strategically allowing the students to gain those things. And that is one of the things that I prioritize in the school that I run. We don't deliver those things on accident to the students. Those are there with purpose and intent and with strategy so that we can take them from who they are when they start with us. We put them on the path, and by the time they get to black belt or beyond, we know the type of person they are. We know where they're learning these things along the way because I've strategically designed it to be that way. And so that is a wonderful outcome from the martial arts, and absolutely keeping martial arts as those, the integrity, those things, those life values and skills that are hard to learn other way. Not that they're impossible, but they're hard to learn outside of the martial arts. So yeah, again, very near and dear. Thank you for that.
That's very interesting. I resonate with everything you're saying about the martial arts, and for these reasons is why I've encouraged my son to pursue it as hard as he can. But now he's doing it because he wants to. So I'm not having to
Mm-hmm.
push him into it now. He had a little situation in the school with a kid and older than him, and he's seen that his training come into play, and ever since that incident, he asked me for extra sessions with his trainer, which I'm very happy about now because it was a hassle to get him into the classes before,
Mm-hmm.
but now we can see.
So, okay, so Ken, talk me through, you talked about, okay, you come in to buy the business. Let's say that the person who you're buying the business from is there on a day-to-day basis. They're running the business. They are the head of the business. You come in, you buy the business, but you're not there on a day-to-day. Do you hire somebody to fit that spot from the outside? Do you bring somebody up that's already on the team? What does that look like?
Yes, so because we're buying these small businesses, typically let's just say at least half of them, right, are run by the owner, the seller of the company. So they're in the office, and a lot of them, once you've got to the stage of running the company for 30 years, you find they're still in the office, but they're not doing too much. It could be managing some of the accounts, or it can be just for the sake of them being in the office and overseeing bigger decisions. So what we would do in that situation is that when we take over the company, we would come in and we would effectively shadow them and take over that role. But also, we would look to take somebody that's working in the business, that's been there for a long period of time, that would effectively get a bit of a promotion, and whatever tasks, let's say there is accountancy tasks. I'm just thinking that with the last company that we bought in November last year, we just delegated all of the accountancy tasks that the seller had onboarded himself to the accountant, which works outside of the company, and then we brought a bookkeeper in as well as a supplier to kind of maintain the books and the records, and then we systemized um, the quotation system so that when a quote goes through, it automatically triggers an invoice on Sage. So we brought in some automations and then some delegations. And in terms of the extra tasks that the seller, I guess, was doing in the company, we delegated that to to the most senior person in the company, who's without promoting him, but he would be seen as being the point of authority, in that operation. Because when you start giving people new labels, you call them a director or an operations director, or whatever you want to call them, they instantly expect to get paid a lot more money because they have that label, they have this title. So, if you can smartly delegate the tasks, a bookkeeper here, we can get somebody in the Philippines to do this here. We can get the accountants to do the payroll and uh, do these tasks, which we don't need to do, which the seller was doing, but now the accountant can do. And then any other responsibilities, giving the staff a little bit more freedom to make some decisions, to allow them to do orders. Then you can do things in a certain way without having to bring somebody new and fresh into the company, but just so that you're saving. You can be talking anywhere between 50K to 100K to have a new director that you bring into the company. So just thinking about the size of the companies that we're looking at buying, typically 500,000 USDs, 600,000 USDs per year would be the annual profit that we'd be looking for. But at the time that you put some debt into the company, so we've got some loans, we now need to account for some seller finance. You want to be walking away with the company, I would say, with at least 200,000 US dollars per year of profit after debt service. Obviously, we're going to have a period of 3 to 5 years that we're repaying this debt, especially if we got the company for free. It's crazy to think you can get a company for free, but this is how we do it. You buy the company smart and you get the company with no money down. But once you just smartly delegate the tasks, get the debt paid off, outsource what you can outsource, you can have a beautiful operation put together. And especially, if you don't have lots of companies, then you can have a weekly check-in meeting with your head of sales or operations manager, and just making sure that things are ticking away nicely. You've got access to your accountancy software, which is connected to the bank accounts. You can see everything coming in, everything going out. So there are ways that you can optimize the systems, and this is not complicated. I've got no degrees, no experience. I've just learned myself over time, and anybody can learn how to do this. This is not rocket science, and that's the nice thing about buying a company, is the fact that you get to learn by watching what everybody else is doing in the company, and then you've got a seller who's going to spend 3 months with you. And you're going to see, he's going to explain everything to you, or she is going to explain everything to you of what's happening in that company, what he's doing or she's doing, and just understanding all of the processes and procedures. Because when you're buying a company that's 30 or 50-year-old, it's mature. So the company's already at that stage where the seller, there's no way that he or she's going to be sitting. I'm going to say he because it's mostly male sellers. I've never bought a company from a female, but it's mostly. It's a case of the seller sitting in the office and just overseeing things because he's delegated all the tasks anyway, and that's just a beautiful thing about buying a company that's mature.
Mm. Yeah, well, and if you are shadowing this person, you're bringing them in, or they're bringing you in, rather how that works, and you get an opportunity to meet with them to go through the company with them, and they're telling you all the things, all the ins and outs. They're going to give you all of the information. They're going to give you the complete roadmap, underlined, hyperlinked, all of the important information right there to you, because they don't want the company to fail. Even though they're not there, they put all of the time, energy, and effort into running this and making it what it is. They're going to give you the best chance of success already. And so you get to go in with that blueprint, and then you just enact that blueprint as you go.
100%. And the thing is, especially when you've got a mature workforce, like the company that we just bought in November. So the member of staff that's been there the least amount of time is 6 years, and you get staff there for 25 years. Mm-hmm. So this has become like a family, an extended family with the seller. So yeah, you're right. The seller doesn't want the company to fail, and especially if they're willing to give you seller finance. They definitely don't want the company to fail. And it shows their trust in the company. And it shows that they have, I guess, no fear of the company disappearing at the product or service anytime soon. If they're willing to give you 3, 5, or 10 years worth of seller finance, it just shows their trust and confidence in the company of what they do.
Yeah. Now, okay, so Ken, let's say we have an entrepreneur that is tired of the daily hustle, consistently fighting for the survival of their business and trying to do anything outside of the business. What are some common pitfalls that prevent them from focusing on the higher strategies and moving outside of their business?
Probably micromanaging. Typical entrepreneur that's going to start a business, um, they're going to be wearing many hats in the business, serving various different roles. And as things at times progress, one thing that I've noticed, thinking about myself, starting businesses in the past, it takes so much time, effort, blood, sweat, tears, resources, and money to set these systems in place. And I noticed a lot of entrepreneurs become control freaks, and they wanting to take control of all of the departments because it's taken them so much time and trauma, I guess, to set up all of these various different moving parts of the business. And this is where the typical business owner or entrepreneur starts getting tied up in the business, losing their own time, freedom, because they're not giving like you've got to delegate tasks to people and give them power to make choices themselves and decision making ability. And going back to the whole control freak thing, a lot of entrepreneurs I notice, they want to retain that power to make these decisions. But I think Richard Branson speaks about this, about giving the staff their own decision making power so that they can, ultimately decide, whether to make this order or, go the extra mile for a member of staff or a client. Once you start giving the staff some more power to and some more freedom to make these decisions, that allows you to start focusing on, above the business to grow the business. A lot of entrepreneurs, they struggle to grow their business because they're working in the business, and growing the business on its own is a full-time job, making a marketing team and then overseeing the marketing team. So the goal always should be to get to the top, to be working above the business, not in the business or on the business, and replicating all of the little functions that you are serving in the business so you can make your way to the top, and then creating that degree of separation between the staff and you so that they don't see you as that resource that they can go to drag you into the operation, which again, it wouldn't give you the ability to do what I did. Last week, I went to the Atlas Mountains in Morocco, and I spent a week there. I couldn't do that if I was working in the business because I would be required and the staff would be expecting.
So you want to kind of strategically and consistently be working yourself out of a job and continually giving your roles and responsibilities to those people that are there around you, that you put in those positions to do those jobs, allow them to do those jobs.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. Just always working your way out of the business. Because by the time that you get to 60, 70 years of age, if you've been working 50, 60-hour weeks, which is very common in the USA. And you'd be very surprised at some of the ages of the sellers that I've come across in the USA. One of the deals I was working on a few months ago, the seller was 95 years of age in Colorado. It was, in fact, there was a few. There was one at 95 and there was one at 98. One of them died during the acquisition process.
Gosh.
So, they've literally worked themselves to death. And this is not what it's about. You need to be able. It's fun owning a business. It's fun visiting the business. You don't want it to be. You don't want your business to be associated with stress. And they do say that stress is like the number one killer as well. So whenever you go into that workplace, you don't want to have that feeling, that emotion triggered when you go in to that factory or into that office that belongs to you. You want to enjoy the feeling that you get. You want to feel uplifted and feel good when you go into the workplace. But imagine working till 95, literally working yourself to death. It's not what life is all about. And working until you're 60, 65 to retire doesn't make any sense. I think, there's a big conversation around work-life balance. And I think this really is the work-life balance is just having what I like is I enjoy working in the office, but I'm here by choice, not because I have to. I'm happy to sit in the office and I'm happy to be here for 12 or 15 hours, but I need to have the choice where if I want tomorrow, I don't need to be here in the office. I'm going to go hill walking tomorrow, or I can go skiing to a ski trip next week. I'm very happy to spend and focus a lot of time as, we are obsessed. Entrepreneurs are very obsessive people. So I'm one of them. I've got it in the blood and I'm happy to be in the office 5 days a week, but you want to be there because you want to, not because you have to.
Well, okay, Ken, I think that brings us to a wonderful stopping point. I want to say thank you so much for sharing your insights or practical strategies for achieving that time and financial freedom. Your approach to optimizing business systems, reclaiming your time, is a game changer for entrepreneurs or those looking to buy a business anywhere. And as we're getting ready to wrap up, I want to know, do you have any key thoughts or final takeaways you'd like to leave the listeners with? And if they wanted to get in contact with you, what would be the best way for them to do that?
For any of the listeners that want to learn more about how to buy a business, because I'm sure there's going to be many people now asking the question, how can I find out more about buying a business? I think the best thing to do is go on bizbuysell.com and just take a look and see what businesses are out there on the market. Filter by results, put your various different filter requests in and see if there's anything that takes your interest. Now, me myself, I do post a lot of content around lifestyle optimization by businesses, and we've got some free training. You're very welcome to help yourself to that. You can get me on Instagram at Ken Mack, Mack, and in my bio there is a link to free training. Take a look at the free training, and it's going to explain to you and break things down step by step and show you some of the deals that we've been doing. That's going to give you an idea of what you can do if you find that business on bizbuysell.com and you decide to go out there and make an acquisition. But remembering as well, in the USA, you have the SBA 7A loan program, and you within 48 hours can have a business pre-qualified with the SBA. It's not a difficult process. Anybody can do it. And maybe your job very soon is going to be buying businesses for a living too.
Wonderful. And to our listeners, if you're ready to transform your life and to take these lessons to heart, start making those changes today. Thanks for tuning in to the Prestigious Initiative. Until next time, keep pushing forward and make every day count.